Hey, Pepin.
Yo, yo.
You know, I've been thinking a lot lately about how great I am.
Well, I suppose so. I mean, you ran that whole clan with the NFL hockey and also that online game and other stuff, and you talked a lot about it, and how awesome you were at combining people's attributes together to create the best team ever.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty great. All the things about me that are good.
Yeah, and also there's that song you did where you talked about how big your dick was and how all the women like to suck it. I mean, that was a little awkward, but I think it's true, right?
Oh, it's definitely true, Nate. There's a lot of things that are really true about me and how great I am.
It sounds like you take this little things and you blow it out of proportion to this ultimate level of pretension.
Oh, Nate, we need to talk. Welcome back. So glad you guys could join us. I am here once again with my best friend Nathan. Pepin, how's it going today, Pepin?
Yo, doing well. How about you, Meter?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much. And we have with us today a very special guest from IDK Radio, Fishstick. How's it going today, Fishstick?
It's going good. I'm stoked to finally make this happen. We've only been talking about it forever.
I know. I completely agree. And I'm really glad to have somebody on who has an even better voice than myself.
Oh, I don't know if that's true, Steven. I'm just here to bask in your greatness, as you mentioned before. Maybe try and siphon off some of it through photosynthesis.
That's fair. There's plenty to go around.
Photosynthesis.
Yeah, I like to use big words, not trying to brag, but I got a good vocabulary, you know.
That means plant lunch, right?
Yeah. It's Latin for plant lunch.
And we are live streaming here today. So if you're listening to this as the podcast version, definitely go ahead and follow us on Facebook.com/We Need to Talk Show or Podcast New Hampshire or Podcast USA. All three simultaneously stream. And specifically, the We Need to Talk page is streaming right here, right now. So anybody who's out there in the audience, feel free to comment. I do have the comments right here in front of me. They won't be a main part of the show, but if there happens to be something that's relevant or catches my eye or pisses me off, I may just read it live on the show. And with that in mind, I'll just give a shout out to Christopher Ball, such a huge supporter all the time, commenting on our stuff, sharing it. That guy is amazing. Thank you so much, as always. And we love you. So, pretension. I didn't know what that word meant, which I guess is kind of ironic, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
So what is pretension for anybody? What is pretentious for somebody who might not know?
I know this one because I just asked Siri before we started.
Please.
It's coming up, trying to come off as though you're better at something or smarter than someone else, and trying to impart a sense of being great, even though you're not.
Ah, I see. So it's like blowing yourself up bigger than you are.
But it's that end of that definition that gets it to be tricky. If you're not.
I see.
So here is maybe a level of pretension that people don't realize. It's like maybe you're folding your clothes and then people give you a whole lecture about how you're folding your clothes wrong and how this is how you properly fold your clothes. And they are just the ultimate clothes folder expert. And it's like, this is nothing that matters.
Listen to this guy bragging about folding his clothes.
Yeah, that's a very specific and strange thing for someone to be pretentious about.
No. Yeah. It's not that I lecture people on that. It's that they lecture me on that.
Where, Nate? Where does this happen to you?
He's talking about his girlfriend again.
No. Actually, sister-in-law. She lectured me on how I fold my clothes wrong. Also, I've been lectured on how I cut vegetables or write the letter a P and R wrong too. Yeah.
Well, you do write them like this.
I mean,
I just drew a circle.
That's how it's done.
But there's also, I feel like there's a difference between that and what I think of when I think of pretentious. Because in this case, you have a person who's correcting you on your behaviors, and that's overbearing and rude. But I don't know, does that count as pretension? Are they coming in saying, I am an expert in cutting vegetables ever since I came out of the womb with a chef's knife made out of ceramic?
Do you need to explicitly say that if the air of what you're coming across as is that same thing? Sometimes the way you say things supersedes the actual words that are being said.
That's true. And here's the thing though. The end of that definition is even if you're not.
I see.
Is your sister-in-law really good at folding clothes or really good at cutting vegetables?
Is she the Gordon Ramsay of folding clothes?
Yes.
So this is the thing. It's when you fold your clothes, there's okay, this is terrible. This is all right. And I guess it's perfect, but who cares about perfect, right? It's just folding fucking clothes, right?
I remember learning about this in school, the 3 steps of clothes folding, the 3 stages that one can achieve.
Man, you went to a really good school. They taught you how to do normal things.
They taught us what the hieroglyphics on the tags mean.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
See, it's okay. Let's say you're cutting apples, right?
Okay.
So let's say you cut apples like terribly, right? And you like cut off like half the apple to cut the skin off. Okay, that's terrible, right? Let's say you cut apples well enough where you get like most of the skin and like not much of the core, that's good.
Right.
But let's say that someone comes along and says, no, you're cutting it all wrong. You should have none of the meat on the skin. Here, this is how you actually do it. Like, does it really matter?
The delivery does. Because if I came in and said, hey, Nate, I noticed that you seem to be struggling with cutting apples. This is frankly abhorrent, and I will teach you and better your life. Okay, the way I just said that's pretty pretentious. But if I was
I thought you were trying to be pretentious. Like, here's an example of pretentious.
I was actually trying to go the opposite direction. But
Like, I'm being humble right now, and you suck.
No.
I'm great. I'll teach.
Oh, Nate left. No, but if you came in and genuinely wanted to help you learn how to cut apples better, that's different. Would that still be pretentious? They said, hey, Nate, looks like you're struggling. Let me show you a trick I know. Is that still pretentious?
No, because it's the way you come off. Because you come off like you're being helpful and like this is something you're struggling with, and I'm frustrated, right?
Right. You're sitting there like sobbing, chopping these apples.
Exactly. But if I'm not like frustrated, I'm just like, okay, cutting some apples, and they're like, that's a terrible apple job right there.
But what if you didn't know you were bad at apple jobs? I'm just using your words. What if you didn't know? So like,
sorry, it's not an apple job, and that's like a weird. It's a new sexual thing.
What if you didn't know you were bad at grapefruit jobs?
I don't really care though. That's the thing. So it's like something minuscule in my life that I don't care to be great at. I just care to be all right at it.
There's another aspect of this too, where when you actually are really knowledgeable about something or good at something, and you're trying to genuinely help and you come off as pretentious, are you then pretentious? Because the definition we got from Siri, which I don't know the exact source on, says that even when you're not. But like, for instance, Nate, what is something you know a ton about?
I know a ton about
Apple jobs,
Best.
bank loans,
personal finance, physics.
Okay.
Computers.
Well, so computers. Actually, that's a really good one because there's a lot of people that don't know duck about beans when it comes to computers. Mm-hmm. That's not something people say. But if you were to try and help someone out who is having trouble building a computer, and would you be being pretentious if you offered help without being solicited it? If like you're seeing me trying to plug a SATA plug into my graphics card, and I didn't ask for your help, but you came over and said, "Hey, you're doing this wrong," and I thought you were being pretentious. Is that right or is that wrong? Because you know a lot about computers.
So it's wrong if they don't solicit the help and if they're not like obviously frustrated or having issues. Let's say someone's about to like break their graphics card trying to plug it in, right? That is kind of like, someone walks in front of traffic and they're about to kill themselves, accidentally. So that...
Here's how you walk.
I think that is appropriate. But if you just kind of like just see somebody struggling and he's like, hey, you offer help, to say no, you just kind of leave it alone.
There you go. So that's what I was gonna kind of get at, is that you can offer to help. Like if you're an expert in something, you see somebody else sucking at it, I don't think there's anything wrong with offering to help. Be like, hey, I've done this before. Would you like any advice? And then if they say no and you do it anyway, that's one thing.
The problem is I'm pretentious, very pretentious, and I have to stop myself because sometimes like I'll see people and I strike up a conversation about something, and then I explain for about like 5 minutes about the topic, and they're not really interested, and just me explaining to them, and they're like, okay.
Yeah, but was it good for you?
Well, yeah, of course.
That's not pretentious, though. If you are excited and passionate about something and someone sparks that in you in a conversation and you're not sitting there overbearing on them trying to express just how much smarter you are, but like if we started talking about black holes or something, presumably, and you went off for 5 minutes, and if I didn't know shit about black holes, I wouldn't say, oh, Nate's being pretentious in this discussion. It would be, oh, Nate's very interested and enthusiastic and I'm learning something, even though I didn't ask, Nate, explain to me what an event horizon is or something.
I got a question. So I feel like there's situations where because you're a genuine and good-natured person, you wouldn't find that pretentious, but the exact same situation, except a different human being, might find that pretentious.
There's a burden on the receiving end, isn't there?
I think it definitely goes both ways, but I think that you can have the same situation with different outcomes just because of somebody's perception, just because of who's received. That's a great way to put it. Mm-hmm. The receiver matters just as much as the giver.
You could say that someone giving a lecture might be pretentious, but they're getting paid to give that lecture, so it's not pretentious because the people are there to soak up the information. But, okay, let's do this, because I give my perspective on pretension, which I think is a little bit different than maybe yours. So, Fishstick, give your definition.
See, after this discussion, I think it's important to make clear that having knowledge in something and expressing that to someone does not automatically make you pretentious.
Agreed.
I think the burden is not entirely, but in large part on the receiving end, like you said before, in that unsolicited help to prove a point. Well, I'm struggling with this because the ending of it is trying to come off as more important, smarter, or better at something or about something than you actually are. So if you are pretty smart about something and you go to express that to someone, are you automatically pretentious or not? Can it rely on delivery? Is that fair for a definition of something to rely on the way you do it in this case?
Yeah, I think so. Okay, here's a case of pretension, which is, I think, unequivocal. So let's imagine you're talking to somebody and they say that, oh yeah, I'm so great. I do all this kind of stuff because I went to Yale for 4 years and this is where I learned all this sort of stuff. That's obviously pretentious.
Right. I don't agree. Not necessarily.
Really?
I think by the definition that Siri gave us, like, there has to be an air of that final sentence, those final couple words of, but it's not true. It's making yourself to be a bigger deal than you are. So maybe you're like, I'm an expert on quantum mechanics, but you only ever talk about like the double slit experiment, and that's the only thing you know, aka me. So like I'll say that I know quantum mechanics, but that's the only fucking thing I know. But if I present myself as an expert on something that I'm not an expert on, that's pretentious. I think there has to be that air of more than what you actually are.
Gotcha. See, I butt up against pretension in my life. I'm involved in a lot of podcasting communities, and I work in a field that is very technical with audio, and I don't want to toot my own horn because as a person I have no self-esteem at all, but I have a wealth of experience in audio technology, signal processing, post-production and stuff like that. And I'll often see things posted where people are like, I'm having trouble with this one thing. And I'll go and I'll type like a 4-paragraph response detailing like everything that's going on. And then I'll delete it because I don't want to come off as pretentious. Because okay, so the central crux of this is this person asked about one specific thing. And then because I have a certain amount of knowledge on something, I go and try and drop an entire bucket of information on this person. That can come off as pretentious because you're going beyond, sort of like you said in your example before. But is it pretentious if you actually know about something? Or would it be pretentious for me to then, at the end of this post, put source, I know a bunch of shit because I'm real smart?
What I think it is there is just like the equilibrium, because like the person wants a little bit of information and you give them all this, right? And you're trying to set yourself up. It's kind of like when people espouse knowledge just to show that they're smart.
Right.
And I think that's what you're afraid of. And also I'm afraid about myself because I happen to do that.
Right. You're in the same exact field, which is part of why I brought it up. You have a lot of knowledge about audio and post-production and everything.
Also, there's another element of pretension. So this is what I don't like. So you're very good at audio. This setup here, it works, right? It's kind of put together. But there's other people who are into audio that would just walk by this and say, this is completely wrong. This is not how you set up a proper audio station. This is going to have a little bit of noise here. This is going to have this. And it's like, I don't care about the perfect audio perfection here. All I care about is that it works.
Right.
And we've had 160, 70 episodes or something like that.
Too many.
And I think excluding the earlier episodes, the audio is actually pretty good, and it's better than a lot of podcasts I've heard.
Right. Now, see, I would not have come in and said that anything is wrong with your audio setup. I actually came in, and this is my first time being in your studio. I actually came in and thought, oh, that's an excellent interface that you've got, and I like the way that you've branched it all apart. And would I have done it the exact same way? Probably, honestly, but if I hadn't, I wouldn't say anything about it. And I also, I don't know, I don't come in looking at it and thinking something is wrong. Does that mean that I'm not pretentious? Or am I pretentious for having just said that just now, because putting myself in the other headspace? Where do you draw the line between acting pretentious and being pretentious? Are there people who are definitely pretentious, barring anything else?
Jesus.
Was he? I mean, okay, in the strictest sense,
Listen, he went around telling all these people that they were going to die and go to hell. Nobody asked for that shit. And he's like, I am the son of God. He calls himself the son of God. Is that not pretentious?
He also claimed to have died and absolved all of humanity of sin by him dying.
Well, that's a martyr.
That's a pretty big thing.
That's a pretentious martyr.
But did he follow through? Has he followed? We can't know that.
I can die and find out for you guys real quick.
Yeah, just come back and just get back in the comments.
Yeah, I'll ghost into the comments and let you guys know. Yeah, it turns out Jesus was fucking pretentious.
That brings up a great, side pretension, which is kind of like Jesus, but people who meditate or into like Buddhism, they get incredibly pretentious because it's like you ask questions on forums and they'll be like, oh, just meditate and you'll find it within you. Or they like give these, like people have these real questions and real kind of dilemmas, and they say, they give like some like canned response that doesn't mean anything, and they act like they're like so high and pious and full of wisdom. I feel
personally attacked right now.
It's interesting. That's an entirely different flavor of pretension, because there's one where presenting more information to prove how smart you are, and there's another where giving these canned phrases that don't give information to imply that you're so smart that you know this, and it's this simple.
Yeah.
Like, oh, peon, simply do this one trick. Doctors hate him. That kind of thing.
And also fitness people are very pretentious. Like,
oh yeah, barring anything else, if you do CrossFit, you're pretentious immediately. Yep. That's just how that works.
I'm pretentious with fitness. I can admit that. I have my own particular views, which I think are completely and 100% correct, right? But when I have a conversation with fitness with people, like I have to be really careful, because if I come across as like too confident in my views or too like, yeah, this is the way it is based off exercise science, it's very pretentious.
There's like a level of humility that you need, even when you, like, let's say you were, without it, unequivocally, the smartest person in the world when it came to fitness. You knew more than anybody else in the world. That doesn't necessarily mean that your collective knowledge of knowing everything, somebody else doesn't have a piece of information that could build upon and grow what you know. Even if you were the smartest person in the world about it, you can still learn things. And I think that's the level of self-awareness and humbleness that needs to come to take you out of the pretension of, even if you're the smartest, you can still learn. And it comes to something that I've noticed a lot, and that's the opposite of pretension, which I would say would be humbleness. And people are often humble to a fault, where it makes them sound like they don't know anything. They're diminishing what they know to try and be humble, and I don't think that's a virtue. A lot of people think that makes them feel like they're a better person. I don't think that's true.
See, that is interesting, because yeah, if you took that definition and flipped it, you're right, because you're pretending to not know much about something even though you do. And I
think there's a level of self-awareness that puts you between humble and pretentious that's really hard to walk sometimes, especially if either A, you don't know anything, or B, you know everything. It's really hard to fall into that middle ground.
I think there's a certain level of self-confidence that goes hand in hand with coming off as pretentious, because, well, that's a stupid comment to make, because obviously there is, because the whole part of it is acting as though you know more than you do. But actually, does that mean that you have too much self-confidence or not enough, and you feel that you need to compensate when you come off as pretentious? Because it seems to me that it could be an attention-seeking or a validation-seeking behavior. Because if you're trying to come off as smarter than you are on something, you want people to have an impression of you that is better than what you truly are. So does that mean that you as a person are too confident or not confident enough?
Well, I think it's both, right? Because there's a psychological theory, which is that you have your inner feelings, and your inner feelings have, let's say you're insecure. What you'll do is create a wall around that, and those outer feelings is the wall to protect your insecurity, and that wall will be super confident. So people who tend to be very insecure are also very confident, but then when you poke that little insecurity there, they freak out, because that's how they protect themselves. So they kind of protect themselves against their own feelings. And I think a lot of people who are pretentious in that kind of way, like let's say the person who talks about how they went to Yale and how they know so much and everything, I've experienced a lot of customers like that. So it's something they try to not demonstrate how they're, say competent or smart or anything. They try to just tell you based off, some sort of things they're saying, or to try to impress you with their knowledge, which is not very good knowledge. Mm-hmm. And that is, I think, coming from security. But I think sometimes people just want to fool themselves. They want to make themselves feel good, and they kind of try to get people hooked up in that narrative or that delusion
that they are an authority of some kind.
Yeah.
So where does that fall in line with imposter syndrome, which you're familiar with, right? You've heard of imposter syndrome.
I learned about it in Yale.
I feel like a pretentious personality is sort of an offshoot of an imposter syndrome, because instead of feeling like you're fooling everybody, you feel like you have to fool everybody. It's just a different flavor of impostoring.
So I'm familiar with imposter syndrome, but can you just define it out just so we have a common definition?
Yeah,
I know what it is, but for everybody else, please.
It's feeling like. Why am I giving the definition, Steve? Why don't you?
Because I don't know what it is.
Okay, it's feeling like you fooled everybody into thinking you're competent.
Oh, me.
Exactly. I suffer from it a lot. I'm training in an engineering thing at my work, and the entire time I'm doing stuff, I feel like I'm tricking them into thinking I'm smart enough to do this, because half the time I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So you feel like you're an imposter in something, even though demonstrably you can know things about it. So it almost it seems like it would sit at an inverse with pretension, but it seems as though it could also be born from that. If that makes sense.
I think it does. The big common thing with imposter syndrome is people who get jobs. They become a president or say a high level manager, and they get the job and they kind of, let's say they luck out, or that's how they feel, because I don't know anything about this. I can't do this. And then at the job, they just feel like they just somehow got into the cracks, and now they're doing something they have no clue about, and they're just going to fail, and everyone's going to find out they're phony and a fake, that and they lied on their resume, which it didn't, but that's how they crumbles it's the whole thing that kind of crumbles in.
Right. So that it's an insecurity thing, really.
What was that word?
Crumbles?
Oh, crumbles. Okay.
Now, I actually have a theory about imposter syndrome, which is that it's the psychological mechanism through which so you feel insecure about your status and your position, right?
Right.
So that insecurity and the fact that you think you're fooling everybody causes a motivation for you to work harder to kind of attain the level of achievement or, say, knowledge that you need to actually succeed in that role. Which it's a good thing in a way, but this dealing with those kind of psychological feelings is tough.
And also, imposter syndrome kind of moves the goalposts on you, because
yeah.
No matter how much you progress, you still feel inadequate.
Yeah.
But I do feel that someone who's acting pretentious might be doing the thing where they're putting up a front to try and seem that they know more.
I see. So it's like, if you feel like you're an imposter,
right,
and you're afraid everyone's going to find out you're an imposter, what you have to do is you have to put something out there to make it very clear that you're not an imposter. You have everything down. You know what you're doing, and this is your particular role that you were meant for.
Right, and so you swing the pendulum too hard the other direction.
Yeah,
and then you come off as a pretentious asshole.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good theory right there.
Do those words have to be paired together?
Pretentious asshole? Mm-hmm. They just go together like bacon and cheese. It just fits.
Just like bacon and cheese.
The
very popular bacon and cheese analogy.
You're telling me you don't eat bacon and cheese?
I'm saying that those are not the first two things that come to my mind when I think of a pairing of words.
Okay, you have a person is a sandwich, and you can put bacon and cheese on just about any
Obviously,
sandwich.
a person is a sandwich.
Yes. All right. I guess it's just how my brain is working right now. Bacon and cheese are two toppings that go well together.
Okay.
I can't believe you don't know this.
Sorry, I didn't go to Yale.
Yes, you learn about that in Yale. So, let's play a game.
Yeah, I definitely agree that playing a game is a great idea, but we're going to say that for next episode, because this episode's getting a little long. So, next week, part 2 of this conversation about what we're talking about. Is it memes? Dogs? Chickens? But, in the meantime, check out the live stream on Facebook if you're too impatient. You can actually see us talking and everything. And also check out I Don't Know Radio. All the links will be in the description below. And you guys have a great day, because, great days are full of we need to talk.